I want you to move from overwhelmed by information to confident in what really matters. I want to help you move from being unsure towards direction and purpose in your healthcare. I want to introduce you to health experts. I want to let you in on tough conversations on women's health. I want to give you a place where you can lean in and learn how to take care of yourself. Let's transform your health. Let's get clear on your goals. This is Women's Health Unplugged. I'm your host, Dr. Jordan Robertson, naturopathic doctor. Hi, Adele.
Hi, Jordan.
Welcome to another episode of Women's Health Unplugged. We are joined today by Adele Tevlin, who has been one of my mindset coaches over the last couple of years, although it's been quite some time since you and I have had the chance to chat.
I know. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Lots has happened, but I feel like in a good way, we're here at the perfect time.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about mindset, of course, because that's your absolute area of expertise. But specifically, when I was reflecting on what I wanted our listeners to get out of this conversation and what I wanted to get out of the conversation was talking about that morning mindset and morning routine. When I've worked with you, that's honestly one of the things that stuck, right? Like that's the habit that has continued in my own life and that I've benefited from so greatly. And I know now you've even like developed some program around how to support people through that positive morning mindset.
Yes, totally. So you want to talk about that?
I want to talk about that. Yeah. So I want to talk about, so first of all, like why does it make such a big difference? You know, and what is the difference between having that morning mindset of success and of control and all of the things that we know successful people have versus that like letting your day control you kind of experience that so many women have?
Totally. This is such a big conversation. So I'm just gonna plug into the first thing that comes out, which is this is how we roll. Jordan and I love that we can just kind of pick a topic and riff. So for me, when I look back, so let me kind of just set the context up. So I was always someone that was fairly disciplined. I think you can probably relate to that. Like someone who was athletic and disciplined, it wasn't hard for me to be disciplined, but my own journey was very much like I wasn't disciplined in the right ways with the right things. Okay. So I would be someone like most of the people that come into my work where the day would happen to me. Like I'd start the day, I'd stub my toe, I'd read the wrong email. And literally the lens with which I saw the rest of the day was reactive as opposed to proactive. So it's like I'd get on my phone, I would check my text messages, I would check this, I would check that. And literally the emotional imprint that I would start my day off would be panic, anxiety, overwhelm. Okay. So as I started to deeply understand, mindset, personal growth and development, did all this work on myself over the last 15, 20 years, but more specifically, I'd say over the last 6 years, I truly started to understand the mechanics behind this. I started to notice that I started to take little pieces of things that I would hear from different people, like, okay, gratitude in the morning or this, and really understand the science. Like, why do we want to start a day with gratitude? Or why do we want to meditate? Or why do we want to do these things? And what I started to observe over time with myself is, when I started my daily practice with something like gratitude, okay, so seeing the opportunity or the positive in something, okay, when I started to start my day with breath work. So I was working with a meditation coach years ago, and she was like, every day you have to just start. The first thing you do is you breathe into your belly, right? Like calm your sympathetic nervous system right down and get right into your body. So I started to see the things that made a huge difference for me, but I didn't know they made a difference for me in the moment. But I started to see over time as I even just started to do 3 things every morning to how I set up my day, my growth, my success, my mindset, the lens with which I saw the world, the opportunities that show up started to shift. So that was one piece. Then the second layer was this. So in my courses, as you know, you went through a couple of my courses. My third course to this, my first series, is called Beyond Breakthroughs. And how I created Beyond Breakthroughs, Jordan, is that for 90 days, we meet every day in the morning for a 15 or 20-minute call where I give you a daily reflection, something to think about. And I give a teaching. So I'll teach from A Course in Miracles or things in my life that have really grounded me into something far bigger than myself. Okay. I would read from different texts. I would start to give people different concepts, different things to do, how to create their day. And in the process of teaching people the work in being in that structure daily, I literally scaled my business from the biggest year I had was like 350,000 and we went to $1 million. Okay. Nothing else really changed circumstantially other than the fact that my mind changed. I started to set up my day with like, yes, my gratitude in the morning and the things that I taught you in the course. Then something I bring in Beyond Breakthroughs is called Create Your Day. And I can share a little bit more about that, really deciding who you want to show up as that day. And the discipline of doing this, Jordan, for like the first 90 days with people, first of all, people just went from like energetically, emotionally, and results started to skyrocket. And then I was doing that with different groups. So I'd be like 90 days with this group and then 90 days with this. And then people wanted to extend for 6 months. And then it turned into, now I have a morning mindset club, which we'll talk about, which is like a year, right? So that daily structure, I've been doing that daily structure for the last, I'm going on year 3 of this. I 100% tie my results in my life back to that structure alone. Because here's the thing, how you start your day literally creates the tone, the energy, the energetic match or mismatch for the rest of your day. So it's like, I start my day feeling empowered, enthusiastic, grounded in a reflection, like a truth. It's like, I'll give like a thought for the day or like a daily reflection of like, I want you to think about this. And then you carry that reflection throughout your entire day. So now you're seeing your day through, like, let's say one of the reflections today was like, you can have whatever you believe you can have. So I did a teaching on belief. Okay. And then I'll give people homework assignments and little reflections and journal prompts that they take throughout the day. And literally people start to connect the dots in their life. They start to have this positive, like you said, filter to walk through the day with, as opposed to how I used to start the day. Like I said, pick up the phone, someone texted me, reaction. I got to do this. So now my day, that first couple hours of my day is so intentionally dedicated to my goal. Like, what's my vision? What am I doing here? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that ties into, and I think we know that we're pretty emotional
Yes.
beings, right?
Yes.
I think we forget sometimes how much our emotions can drive our perception of reality, right? So
Yes.
we just had like a big snow day, right?
Yes.
And there's a couple different ways that you can perceive how that all went down.
Yes.
Either you can, lie in bed and look out and go, oh my God, the world is shitting on me.
No. It's God has a funny sense of humor.
That's right. Like, nope, the world doesn't want me to go to work or make money or get to the gym, or it's not in the cards for me to meet this goal I have because look at all that friggin' snow.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so we start to, rather than just like the absolute logic of it is, wow, we got 2 feet of snow overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like
Totally.
the actual reality of it is we got a lot of snow. And yet our mind will tell a story about the snow. And when we're wired to see it in the negative or see it in the con, that we immediately start to tell a story that the universe, like that this is, we're not meant for anything good because look at all this friggin' snow.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that, because I literally made a note that I wanted, as you said that, the word emotions, I'm like, okay, we need to go. This is where we're going with this. This is so good. That example is brilliant. And here's why. So our human mind, for most people, is primed to see the negative. And you know this because, you're a doctor, you get this, like your limbic system is always scanning for danger. And so most people, if they have not trained their mind to see the good, the opportunity, what they do reactively and reflexively almost is see the bad. Like you said, it snowed, the kids, forget this, the kids are never going back to school, I'm never going to work, like I'm not. So you go down this road and you go into calibrating with those negative emotions, which puts your energy very, very low. Okay. Now let's talk about emotions for a second, because this is a huge part of my work, like the energy of emotions and the energetics. Okay. From like a quantum physics perspective. So, you got your emotions. And for most people, they have what I call their default mode setting of their emotions. So a lot of people go into anxiety or overwhelm or negative thinking or rumination, or like we talked about, like, what's the other thing that we said is like, when you go into like the snowball of like catastrophize.
Catastrophize.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay. Now, here's the thing, and I'm going to say this, and for some people, when I say something that triggers you, I actually think, rather than going, oh, that triggers me, ask yourself, why am I having this experience? Because inside the trigger, there's a growth spurt for you. We are addicted to our negative emotions as people. Okay. Joe Dispenza does like a lot of work around like our addictions to our negative emotions. Okay. I'm going to take it one step further. For a lot of people, as they go towards their goals, so this could be your health goal, a fitness goal, it could be a financial goal, it could be a relationship goal, whatever you declare to the universe, like you say, I want this thing. Okay. The opposite shows up. This is called the law of polarity. Why? Because you set an intention and you get a counter intention, which means it's kind of like the universe testing to see how badly do you really want it. Okay. For a lot of people, if they haven't done this mindset training, what happens is that they say they want something, and right away the subconscious mind goes, you can't do that. You're not good enough. It's like the bullshit meter in the mind goes off. And here's what happens. I literally taught this morning in morning mindset. So you say, hey, I want to make $1 million. I want to be a millionaire, or I want to attract my ideal partner. I want to lose 20 pounds, whatever it is. It's the same psychology. Immediately the voice in your head is like, you can't do that this year. Like all the reasons why you can't show up. And then the minute you have that thought goes into a feeling, because a thought creates a feeling. So then you start to feel overwhelmed and anxious and disappointed and this, and then this is the emotion that you're hanging on to the whole day. Everything then starts to calibrate to that emotion, because you're an emotional being, and your emotions is what does the manifestation. So emotions is what calibrate to the manifestation. So if I'm walking around all day feeling disappointed subconsciously, but I'm trying to take aligned action towards my goal, I'm not going in the right direction. So part of what I teach people that's so foundational is you have to understand that each of us has what I call a sabotaging strategy. And the sabotaging strategy is like a very intricate like technology in your brain. And I'm sure you can even see this for yourself, Jordan. It's like, okay, you say you're going to like, do this in the gym, and then it's like everything shows up, like the snowstorm shows up. It's like, oh, sabotage. Okay. But here's why the sabotage is so interesting. The subconscious mind is all about pattern recognition. So it's doing the pattern it knows versus the pattern you think you want to do, or you say you want to do. So it knows the pattern of giving up on yourself. It knows the pattern of, this is too hard, I'll start tomorrow. It knows that pattern. It does not yet know the pattern for commitment and discipline and doing it no matter what and all that stuff. Okay. So here's how it gets you to agree with the pattern of you can't do it. It hooks you with a negative emotion, and it hooks you with your predominant negative emotion. So what does that mean? I see this with women a lot, because most of my people in my groups are women as well. It hooks them with disappointment. It hooks them with like, I'm not good enough. It hooks them with anxiety and overwhelm. It hooks them with the emotion it knows that it's going to get you to stop. Okay. So even just this understanding alone had me start to go, okay, what usually hooks me to get me to quit? Disappointing somebody else. That for me, if I feel like I, in my past self, if I felt like I was disappointing somebody else, forget it, I would stop. When I finally started to train my mind to override that, like it didn't get me to stop anymore. It started to dismantle that sabotaging strategy. Does that make sense to you, Jordan? Like it started to be less of a hook for me. And I started to see it for what it is. Oh, that's my sabotaging strategy. Every time I feel like I'm disappointing someone, it gives me a reason to quit. What am I going to do instead? So then you create what I call an overcoming strategy. Well, instead of stopping, I'm going to keep going no matter what. I'm going to put one foot, the next step, I'm going to do the next step and the next step and the next step. So this is about building a habit, like what you and I just talked about even before recording. Like success is a habit, Jordan. Training is a habit. Like working out is a habit. Doing your morning routine is a habit. When something becomes habitual, it then becomes easy. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And immediately what it makes me think of is how I think that's that like discomfort that people feel when they're trying something new, right?
Mm-hmm.
That like when we say, okay, adopt this pattern, adopt this, health thing that we want you to do. We want you to go for a walk.
Yeah.
But then if the conditions aren't like pretty darn perfect,
Mm-hmm.
it's really difficult to execute, right? So we can say go for a walk, and as long as it's like sunny and there's no breeze and right, you have the right running shoes and you can find a hair elastic and nobody calls you, then you go, right?
Yes.
But at the beginning, if we hit like a relatively minor speed bump,
Yes.
we don't do it, right?
Yeah.
We don't, even people's gratitude journal, right? Like they even if we hit a minor speed bump, like your kid like wakes up 15 minutes earlier than they were supposed to, people will put that shit down and they won't do it when there is an alternative, right? There is an alternative if you like, pushing through some of those habits despite the speed bumps.
Absolutely.
But when we think about like what our bigger vision for ourselves are,
Yeah.
does that woman let her kid waking up 15 minutes get in the way of her dreams?
Absolutely. This is such a profound conversation and question. So here's the thing. Again, this is my perspective. And for anyone listening, like take what feels true and aligned and leave the rest. But this is literally not only what I teach, but I live by as a philosophy. Okay. I live by the philosophy, Jordan, that my word is law. My word as law. So what does that mean? When I give my word to myself that I'm going to do something, I honor that integrity, like first and foremost, no matter what. This is something I've been trained as, not just as a therapist, but I've done like different leadership stuff in my life, landmark, this, that, like worked with Tony Robbins. I've done so much. And for 20 years, I've been mastering and studying the mind. So everything I've done has trained me like an athlete almost, but like an athlete of my mind to discipline myself to honor my word. So what does that mean? Like if I said I'm going for this goal for my business this year, and I've given my word to it, to both the goal and myself, I show up with a no matter what attitude as opposed to as long as attitude. So if you're listening, you want to write the distinction between these two things because I'll take you through it. It's profound. This is what changed the game for me. So I was always somebody that honored my word for other people, not always myself. Okay. So women do this a lot. Well, I honor my word for my kids. Well, that's not honoring your word for you. So honoring your word to someone else is actually putting you out of integrity with yourself. You don't have to be disloyal to yourself to be loyal to somebody else. Actually, for women, this is the hardest thing because we have the martyr heroine kind of thing as women, especially if you have children. Most of us have inherited like being the martyr from our mothers. Like our kids come first. You and I have talked about this too. Like, what does it look like to be a successful woman and like also have children and also have these things? It's like you still come first. You're the center of your universe. If you're not okay, they're not okay. I have learned this the hard way as a mother myself. It is not selfish to put yourself first. It's actually imperative that you do, because if you have no tank, no gas in your tank, you show up resentful to other people. So I learned that for myself, I had to learn to honor my word for me first and foremost. So if I say I'm going to the gym or I say I'm going for a walk and it's in my calendar, it's scheduled, like literally my mindset around myself is no matter what, Adele. It doesn't matter if it's raining, to your point, or on a hair elastic, or I'm having a bad day, or Dave, my husband, and I are in a fight, or, like great example of this is, I share this very openly, but I had a miscarriage last year in February, and I was leading all my programs. I think I had like 5 or 6 groups going on at the same time. And I was going through a miscarriage. It was my 40th birthday. It was like the middle of the pandemic lockdown. It was a shitty time. What I learned about myself, Jordan, in that time is I could do anything because I showed up the next day after a miscarriage to my groups. My mindset is when I give my word as law, like you can trust, Jordan, when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to fucking do it. And if I can't, I will communicate that to you. But because I have my word as law, I trust myself. So for women who are listening, this is so important. When you don't honor your word to yourself, you lose self-trust and you lose self-esteem. This is where this is the foundational work that I do in my CEO blueprint, is like rebuilding self-esteem and self-efficacy with oneself, like emotionally understanding that you have to honor your word to yourself first and foremost. Because every time you say you're going to do something and you don't, for whatever reason, it's like you take a marble out of a trust jar. So I think of trust as like a marble jar. And every time you honor your word, you put a marble in. And every time you don't, the marble goes out. So for most women, it's like marble in, marble out, marble in, marble out. And by the end of the day, you have no fucking marbles. So when I went through my miscarriage, and I share this story because I know that you do a lot of fertility stuff, and this is my own journey, and it taught me so much. I mean, my belief and faith in God changed. Everything I taught became more crystallized because I was like, one of the things I talk about in Beyond Breakthroughs is God is good all the time. Everything's happening for my highest and best good. So I was emotionally able to move through it. But I also, because I had the structure of my teachings and people counting on me, rather than curl up in a ball and go into depression, which I probably would have if I didn't have this stuff, because I was already prone to depression in my past, I actually found like I was thriving. I was like very sad, obviously going through it, but I was anchored in something bigger because my word is law. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
a lot of women who are listening to this need to not make yourself wrong for this. Don't go into beating yourself up. This was not something I was born understanding. I trained myself to understand this. This is habitually learned. Everybody can learn this skill. If I can do it, you can do it. I learned this about myself. Adele, no matter what, you can rock this out. Like, you got this. And I know that to be true, Jordan. Like, I can go through an issue in my marriage and still show up. I can go through really hard time emotionally with something going on in my life and still show up and do my best. Like, do my best. And my best will be different every day, but I know I'm going to give my best. And because of that, my subconscious mind has almost seen that it can't stop me. Like, I'm going to keep going. So what I want women to, when they're listening to this is an exercise that they can do. I gave this to my group this week because I thought it was a really powerful exercise. Make a list and ask yourself this: what is it that I truly desire in my life? Like, even as you're listening to this podcast, your brain's probably popping and you're going, oh my God, what do I want? So for some of you, you want better health, or maybe it's a fertility thing. You want a family. Like, one of my goals for 2022 is to conceive. Like, we're trying, and that's one of our part of our plan is to expand our family. So it's like, okay, I want to conceive, and I'm thinking about fertility and doing the things. And I then immediately ask myself, okay, where in my life, as it relates to that goal, am I a no matter what versus as long as? So let me distinguish that. For all of you ladies listening, you're probably no matter what when it comes to your kids, right? Your kids are like, Mommy, I'm hungry and I want cake and I want this. And you're like, okay, no problem. Like, when's Santa coming? I want my birthday. Like, no matter what your kids ask, you're like, yes, I'm there. But what I found when women did this exercise and they shared in the group, and then I'm like, where are you as long as? And then this woman said to me, well, I'm kind of as long as with everything when it comes to myself, but I'm no matter what for everything for somebody else. And I said, so how likely is it that you're going to hit your goal? She's like, I can actually see now that it's very unlikely. So if you're listening to this is a great exercise to do. Ask yourself in your life, where am I no matter what? So for some of you, it might be my health. I'm no matter what. I show up no matter what. But I'm as long as in my business, like as long as the kids are at school, and as long as COVID's not a thing, as long as, and you need to try to move as many things from as long as to no matter what, which takes just habitual practice and discipline and honoring your word one day at a time, right? One day at a time, honoring your word. Sorry, that was my kind of rant. Does that make sense?
Oh, I like it. It makes perfect sense. And it's funny because if we thought about a friend that was letting us down as much as we sometimes let ourselves down, right? We wouldn't hang out with her that much.
That's such a good, well, I always say we talk more shit to ourselves than anyone can ever say about us. Like,
Yeah, but I really like that distinction between like no matter what and as long as, because what
Mhm.
I see when I'm working with women is that their no matter what is their family. Sometimes their no matter what is their, I'm going to say their job, maybe not
Yeah.
their career or their passion, but their job.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas you're right, like we only walk on sunny days, right? We only meditate if we're already kind of calm.
Or in the mood, in the
We're in
mood.
the mood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like and it's funny, I'll give patients that example. I'm like, well, I only used to write in my diary when I was mad at my parents, right? Like but that didn't really get me anywhere, right? Like we can't just do it when it's easy, or just do it when or sometimes we do the opposite and we do it when it's really hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're sad, we can meditate because we can see, oh shit, I'm sad again, I better meditate.
Mm-hmm.
But then we don't have it as a habitual practice, as part of a growth strategy. It's like a rescue strategy instead.
Absolutely. That's such a great distinction. Like, it's so true. There are so many things. Like, here's what I find interesting when you just said that. What popped up to me is, it's like, you love the gym and so do I. And it's like, I don't just train. When you talk to an athlete, like, it's so funny. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine who was an athlete. And I said, what would happen if you just trained on days that you felt like it? And he was like, well, I'd probably train 3 days a year. Like the truth is that, right. And he was like, he went to the Olympics. Like he was like feeling like it has nothing to do with it. And this brings me to my next point. So thank you for saying that, because this is like a perfect layering. I want you to ask yourself, if you're listening to this podcast, these are some journal prompts that I literally give myself and give my group. So like there's a lot of gold in this. How invested and committed are you to your goal? Because here's the truth. And I always love to give the truth with love, because I'm not one of those coaches or mentors that's going to be like unicorns and rainbows and, giving you crap. Like I'm giving you the real deal here. The real deal is this. If you're not 100% invested and committed to what you're doing, you'll always find the reasons, the excuses not to. Okay. And you can look in your life at anything. Like if you wanted to make, like, for example, if like you wanted to have a kid, right? And you're like, I want to be a mom so bad. I'm so invested. Like you see this, people go through fertility treatment and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on IVF to have a child. Those people are invested. They're committed to being a family, right? I have seen my own clients like going through this issue where it's like they would do it no matter what. Like we'll adopt, we'll do this. They're no matter what, right? If you're like, I kind of want a kid, we'll see what happens. You're not really trying. You're not really this. You're kind of like, we'll see. This is not investment. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just about being radically honest. Like for me, I have to do this with myself all the time. So it's like I ask myself, like, what's my goal? So one of my goals is a financial goal in my business, or a baby, or an income impact goal. With everything I say I want, Jordan, I ask myself, Adele, how committed are you really to this? Like, and then I'm honest. If one place I'm kind of like, well, I'm 60% committed, I'll either look at that goal and be like, do I really want it? Do I want to change the goal? Do I want to get rid of the goal? Or do I want to bring more commitment to the goal? So to your point about going for walks only on sunny days, I would then ask the person, well, how badly do you want to change your health? Like, how committed are you? And if the person's like, meh, then I would say, then the goal doesn't really mean much to you. You should find something that feels really inspiring. Because I really believe this, Jordan. I think that if you're 100% invested in what you're doing, like you're really committed, you can have anything that you desire. Like nothing is out of reach. If you want to conceive a child and you're 100% committed, it will happen. You will find a way. If you want to like become a millionaire and you're 100% committed and invested, you will. There is no way you won't. So commitment and investment to what you're doing energetically, and it harmonizes you with everything that you need to go to that next level. But it's kind of like the universe is testing. I always believe that the universe has this very magical mathematical sense of humor. You say you want something and the opposite shows up, and it's testing how badly you want it. And I actually believe, like when I went through my miscarriage, it was interesting because I had some real honest conversations with myself. I said to myself, Adele, like, did you want this right now? And the truth was, there was a part of me that was like, I didn't feel ready. And I think when I realized that that was actually probably the gift in it, and that now I'm actually at a different place where I'm like, I'm 100% ready for this. I was scared, Jordan, because I just started, we had just moved into the new house. It was the middle of the pandemic. My business was going bananas. I didn't feel like I could handle it with also being pregnant. And I energetically, I think it was like, I wasn't ready. Didn't happen. And then, so it really had me reflect like, oh, I wasn't 100% committed to being a mom in that moment for a new baby. But now I'm like, I'm ready. I'm committed. Like I'm here. I'm invested. So this is about using these tools, not just when times are good or times are bad. This is about like a way of being and thinking and acting and understanding. I teach a course on the universal laws, like understanding how the universe is showing you exactly what you need when you need it. Like if you're willing to be honest with yourself without making yourself wrong, and you're willing to see that everything is a gift, and you're willing to see that there's an opportunity in everything, right? It changes the lens with which you see the world. It changes how things occur for you.
That's so special. And thank you for sharing about your own personal experience. Because I think women can hear themselves in that experience, right? And to see that, like, to see the gift in loss is so difficult, right? Or to see the opportunity in the obstacle, which I think is a term you've used before, is something that is so difficult, right? So, I always go back to like that very simple walk example, but there's bigger examples of that, of right, like of asking you to lean in deeper to those goals actually builds resiliency and your ability to overcome
Yes,
like not just small speed bumps, but big ones, right?
absolutely.
When you can do that with like some repetition in that daily practice, then suddenly like you always have the hair elastic, right? You
Yeah.
always have the thing that before maybe got in your way, right? Because you
Yep.
just become a better equipped person to
Yes.
work towards your goal.
Yes.
But also that like that practice in the morning starts to construct a mindset that is going to see opportunity and possibility kind of no matter what, right? And I think you're
100%.
illustrating that like even in such a like really kind of sad and sort of, like a moment of despair, still trying to frame it in a way that allows you to like grow from it.
Absolutely. We don't grow in the breakthrough. We grow in the breakdown. And I teach this a lot. So here's how I look at it. Like when you're on a high in life, Jordan, like, all things are good and you're this and that, and everything's amazing. You're celebrating. But it's being able to see that actually in the pain is where the growth happens for every human being. And if you're listening to this, I actually encourage you to recently think of a time where you were celebrating and also think of a time where you were in pain. The growth happens from the pain. This is where the phoenix rise from the ashes idea comes from. Our resilience is not built in the good times. Our resilience is built in the hard times. And it's how you handle the hard time. Back in the day, like when I was dealing in my early 20s with depression, this is what got me to become a therapist. This is what led to my career. I saw the world through, like, they talk when you're depressed, you see the world through like almost like if you're wearing glasses, like a film on your glasses. Okay. And when you change the way you see things, the things you see change, like Wayne Dyer says. So like as I started to work on my mindset and shift the way that I saw things, like my perspective, it's like the glasses started to get clean and it became like I could see things clearly, right? So the truth is we're all going to deal with loss in our life. This is what it means to walk with duality as human beings. We're going to deal with hardships or people in our life dying or our parents getting older and COVID and then this and a miscarriage. Like this is life. Like no one leaves life unscathed from loss. This is a part of life, right? But we're not conditioned as children. And I talked about this in classes with you guys too. Like we're not conditioned to deal with loss appropriately. We are not taught as children, hey, transition and loss is a part of life. You need to be able to walk with both the joy and the sadness at the same time. My ability, Jordan, what 2021 taught me was this, and I think this was a lesson for a lot of people in 2021. 2021, and tell me if this is resonating for you too, Jordan, wasn't it the year of walking with duality? It was like the good and the bad at the same time, all the time. It was like for most people, it was like some of their best months in their business and so much loss at the same time. Or like this happened and then this happened. It was like very dual because one of the laws of the universe is called the law of polarity. So everything has both an equal and opposite. But 2021 energetically felt like the year of walking with duality, like both amazing things happening and not amazing things happening. And why is this relevant? It's relevant because I have noticed that the people that can walk with duality, like both see that they can be sad and happy at the same time, or they can be upset and still show up to work, or they can not feel like it and still go for their walk, or they can deal with loss. And like those people rose energetically, like they kind of leveled up, like boop, 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 boop. They learned the lesson because here's how the universe works. The universe is like this. It gives you a test and then you learn the lesson. It gives you the test and then you learn the lesson. At school, as a doctor, Jordan, you can understand this too. You do the lesson and then you get the test. You do the lesson and then you get the test. But the universe is opposite. So everything that happened last year was like a test. Can you say you want the growth? Can you handle the growth? You say you want the baby? Can you handle the baby? You say you want this? Can you handle it? It's like test, lesson, lesson. And the people in my courses who have learned the lessons, they went on to the next level of evolution because it's like the universe is like, okay, she got the lesson, move up. The people that didn't get the lesson, they just stay there until they learn the lesson. When you really get that this is how it works, most people are like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. This is kind of like my life. So the idea is to learn the lesson. We're all going to go through hard times. It is part of the human experience. What's the gift in the mess? What's the opportunity in the obstacle, to your point? If you can even just look at that and change your frame, you'll see and experience life very differently. That I can promise you.
So how can we make this practical? Like, I'm just thinking about, and we talked about this a little bit before we hit record. Like,
Yeah.
I feel pretty, and I don't know if the word is like luck, like I'm a very, very positive, hopeful person in the morning. Sometimes not so much at the end of the day, and
Yes.
sometimes have to put myself to bed or be told to go to
Yeah.
bed by
Yeah.
various people in my life because that's the end of the day. But I have this a good fortune of waking up every day, no matter how terrible the day before has been.
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm like, all right, let's do it again. Like, let's try. I'm excited. I have hope. I have I see opportunity. I feel excited no matter how difficult the day before actually felt. And I've tried to figure out like where that came from. And I'm sure like a lot of my training, and especially my undergraduate, was on mindset, personal development, reflection, perspective taking, communication, conflict resolution. I had all of those skills. But really it's been like sort of this like ongoing practice of like this, everything melts away after like when I go to bed, and then I wake up the next morning and I'm like, all right, dude, let's do it again.
Totally.
But how do we start to cultivate that if people don't feel that way, right? Or if they're feeling like, no, I do wake up and I do see that snow and think the world is shitting on me. What are some practices that can be employed in that morning routine that will start to cultivate a more positive mindset?
Perfect. I'll give you a great tool. But let me kind of speak to something, because I think it's important that people understand why, and maybe for you too, Jordan, like, why is it that like you could feel like shit the night before and you wake up optimistic? And the reason for that, for a lot of people, is that if you think about like willpower as an example, we wake up in the morning with a full tank of it. And then as the day goes on, our willpower dissipates. Okay. So it's like, hey, yay, the morning, I can do this. And then by noon, it's like, ugh. So there is something to the fact that our morning, when you capture your morning in a positive state and you have a tool and a framework to move through the day, you're not just relying on your willpower. You've actually got a habit that you're building. Okay. So let me give you I'll give you a couple things that I take people through in my morning mindset club on how to create your day. So this is how I start my day every morning. So I'm going to give you a couple of my morning structures. And for the people that are listening, they can take what really resonates. And even if you can adopt like 2 or 3 of these over the next 2 weeks, like your mind will be blown. Okay. So before I do anything in the morning, my eyes open, I don't look at the phone, nothing. I literally do 10 minutes of breathing, of meditation. So first thing, so for people who they've been scared to try meditation because they think it's something like Buddha does on a mountain, I'm just going to really simplify it for you. Okay. The first thing I do, I'm lying in my bed. I put like, I'm still in, when you're still waking up, you're in like theta wave state. So you're still kind of dreamlike. In that state is the best time to do this. You put your hands on your belly, and all you do is you breathe into your belly. So you expand your belly and you exhale out the mouth. So diaphragmatic breathing. You start with 10 minutes. Okay. You can look at your time and go, okay, it's 7:55. I'm going to do this for 10 minutes. Okay. Why is this so important? It takes us right out of sympathetic and puts us into parasympathetic right away, right? Puts you right into your body, like connects you with your, especially like depending on, I'm not going to get into human design, but like some people, like if connecting to your sacrum and your root is like, just keeps you grounded. It moves you into your intuition. It takes you out of your thinking mind and into your feeling body, like right away. Because let's say I wake up and I'm a bit anxious about the day or something's on my mind, and I just go, and I take my first breath anchors me. It's like crazy. And as you build the habit of doing it, you'll notice that even just the thought of starting to breathe will calm you down. So that's how I start my morning, no matter what. If Elia's up earlier, my son, or whatever, I'm like, everybody go away. I'm breathing. Okay. Or sometimes he'll come lie. He now knows mommy meditates. So he'll lie with me and breathe with me. You can get your kids to do this. They love it. I get up, I go into my office, and I create my day. So this is actually a tool that I give my students to do. It's called Create Your Day. The first question in your Create the Day is this: what am I committed to today? Okay, so write that question down. What am I committed to today? So the first thing I do, even before gratitude, is what am I committed to today? So for example, today I'm committed to my podcast with Jordan. Today I'm committed to morning mindset club. Today I'm committed to a workout with my trainer. Today I'm committed to my walk. Today I'm committed to posting something on social media. So I'll look at what I'm committed to for the day. So I literally anchor into what are my commitments. And the reason I chose the word commitment is because you're doing it no matter what. So when you say it's a commitment, you show up like, I'm not maybe showing up for Jordan's podcast, depending on how I feel. It's in the calendar and it's happening, right? Like it's a commitment. But I have that with everything I do. So my workout is just as much of a commitment, Jordan, as my session here with you. Like this is not more important than my workout. Do you see that? Like if it's a commitment, it's a commitment. So I start with what am I committed to today? So I literally look at what my day looks like and I write it down. Okay. People love that because it gets them really grounded in what I need to do. If you've never done anything like this before, my invitation is this. Don't put down 25 commitments because you go into overwhelm. Start with 2 or 3 things that you're committed to that day. I'm committed to my workout. I'm committed to my meeting with this. I'm committed to, listening to the podcast, like whatever. Okay, great. The next question is this. Who do I need to be? How do I need to show up today? Or who do I need to be today? So how do I need to show up and who do I need to be? So this is so important because I said this morning, people were in my group this morning. I was like, so when I create my day and I ask, how do I need to show up? The adjective or the verb is typically enthusiastic. So that doesn't surprise you because like I pretty much show up enthusiastic to everything I do. Now, I don't wake up every morning feeling enthusiastic because maybe I'm on my period or I've had a fight with my partner or I didn't have a great sleep. But when I sit down and I create my day, I decide I'm going to be enthusiastic. So I choose how I need to show up. So how you feel and show up is a choice, people. So it's like, I'm going to be a leader today. I'm going to show up bold. I'm going to show up courageous. I'm going to show up excited, enthusiastic, like energized. So I literally step into and calibrate to that way of being. And it's like it literally sets me up. Like, so if I know I'm showing up to this interview today, like I'm enthusiastic, like what happened last night or this morning is completely not even on my radar anymore because I'm just focused on showing up this way, right? So those 2 questions alone, I have more in the create the day, but I'll just give those 2 things for people to start. Sit down and go. So start with meditation, sit down, create your day. What am I committed to today? And how do I need to show up today? No matter what versus as long as. I'm going to show up bold. I'm going to show up courageous. I'm going to show up with integrity. I'm going to show up like passionate. I'm going to show up kind. I'm going to show up compassionate, depending on what you're doing. So maybe you have a day with your children. Maybe you need to show up present or compassionate with your kids today versus if you have like a business meeting. So you look at your day and your commitments, and then you decide, how do I need to show up in order to fulfill my commitments? Does that make sense?
I love it. Those are such great prompts. And I know there's lots of tools like that. I think it's the daily commitment to it that makes the biggest difference, right? Yeah. Because you're right. Like, we don't always wake up on the right side of the bed. No. But setting that intention, like it just, and then as your day does unfold and you're like, oh no, there's snow, but I've chosen to be an enthusiastic human being today. Yeah. Like suddenly then you do see opportunity in the speed bump or whatever it is that shows up, right? Because
to your point, it's an intention. It's like, how am I going to choose to see the obstacles that show up today?
Right. Because we're not just saying I'm only going to be enthusiastic as long as everything goes well.
No. Like, here's the thing. The universe is going to give you a shit sandwich the minute you're going to show up enthusiastically, because the polar opposite is always there. So here's the deal. This is not about doing it. Like, I have not skipped a day of this create the day for the last 3 years. So Saturday, Sunday, like, because when you build a habit, you don't want to do the habit intermittently. I'm very much about, once I build the habit, I do the habit every day, right? So I do the habit every day. It takes me 3 minutes in the morning. It's not a big deal. This shouldn't take you longer than 5 minutes. Everybody has 5 minutes to create a day. So I do this habit. And then here's the thing, on the days where it's the hardest to show up the way I said I was going to is the day that I grow the most. Because it's easy to show up, like you said, when it's sunny and you live in Florida and it's like unicorns are flying through the sky and it's amazing and you're in a great mood and you're not on your cycle. And it's like, but then the next day you're on your cycle, the snowstorm, the kids have not been in school, COVID, like, Are you going to show up enthusiastically, notwithstanding the circumstances? That's where you level up. Not on the easy days, on the hard days. Mm-hmm. So I haven't missed a day of doing this. Honestly, I can't say I've missed a day in 3 years, even on days I was sick or over the holidays. I just commit to like, Adele, this is the structure that works for you. Don't stop doing the thing that works.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because we joke in my world with the people that I work with, we joke that I just read the teleprompter, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the joke around here, that it's like, if it's in the calendar, then Jordan shows up. It just
Exactly.
knows which way to turn and when to smile because we've committed to it.
Absolutely.
Right. And those practices of like going to the gym or whatnot, I read the teleprompter on those things too, right? Like they're just there no matter what. And so if my kid gets invited to a birthday party and it conflicts with me going to the gym, well, guess what? We're going late.
Yeah, very good. See, you're a committed person though, Jordan, and it's no surprise that you're successful because you understand inherently the things that we're talking about here. But commitment and discipline is a learned behavior. So for some of us, like I grew up I know we're kind of rounding up on time, but I want to share this story because I think it's important. Like I grew up in a family that was all about discipline, but I learned it, I was scared to not comply to the discipline of my parents. So I learned from an early age, like discipline meant safety. Okay. As a ballet dancer, everything was discipline. So I'm naturally already high on discipline and commitment. Okay. But if you weren't born in a family where you were like, it was like the Navy SEALs. Okay. My house was like, it was like training for the Navy SEALs. Okay. But you can learn it. Discipline, like if you do this for 90 days and you start to build a habit with, that's why Beyond Breakthroughs is a 90-day program. Like that 90 days of the habitual daily practice, by the time you're done 90 days, it's like tying your shoelaces. You don't have to be reminded of it. Anybody can learn this stuff, but you have to be discommitted enough to do it every day. So to your point, you're a very committed person. You read the teleprompter, it's in your calendar, you show up, which is why you're successful. Those two things go hand in hand. And I love how you said, like, if it's about the gym or the party, you're going to go to the party late because you honor your integrity with yourself first. It's beautiful. I love that. I love that.
And one of the things I wanted to get out of this conversation for our listeners is for them to start to see that it's not like a magical or like massive life overhaul that it takes to start to move in that direction, right? I think sometimes when we see people online or people killing it, or people like, wow, she seems to be able to like do her training kind of no matter what, she must not have hard days, right? And just those stories we tell ourselves about other people's success,
yes,
sometimes become like a burden in and of itself, because we imagine that the things that they're doing to achieve it are not attainable by us, or not, that's not something I can do. I don't have the resources to do that, or to even move towards that, when the reality is that it's actually very, very small practices. It's just the consistency of them that starts to like, build the canyon.
Totally. It's such a good point. It's actually like calling it's a compound interest. It's like those consistency compounded over time create great results. So if my whole vibe is this, when I teach people, that's why I share so many personal stories. I'm not afraid to share. I'm an open book because I very much want people to not only hear and see themselves in me, but see that if I can do it, they can do it. There isn't anything more special about me. The difference with me is that I'm so invested in what I'm doing, and I've trained my mind to be disciplined and committed about the things I'm doing, that I've built the confidence in myself to know I can carry it out. And that is something that every woman can do, right? I wasn't always this way, like in my 20s and 30s. No, this has been the evolution and growth of a lifetime for me. And I'm 40, I'm going to be 41 next month. Like I really came into this in my mid 30s for myself. Like I was a very different person in my previous life, but I became somebody that really took my life for real, for serious. I ask myself this question every day. What do I want my life to be about at the end of my days? Like when in my dying bed and I look back at the wisdom, it's like, what do I want my life to be about? I want it to be about living like the most authentic, best expression of myself. And that comes with a lot of sacrifice. Like that comes with really understanding that there's always a trade-off. And I don't mean sacrifice like your sleep. I mean sacrifice the shit that doesn't work for you anymore. It's like getting rid of the things that hold you back, like thoughts, beliefs, all those things. And that's why this has been my life's work, is because I have evolved so much over the last 5 years specifically, that if I can do what I've done, everybody listening to this could do it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So where can our listeners find you? Because you offer so many great
Yes.
things and great resources. How can they get connected with what you do, Adele?
Yeah. So I hang out on Instagram, like that's my jam. So Adele_Tevlin at Adele_Tevlin. I'm sure you guys will link that up. And in there, you can see like all my program offerings. If like the morning mindset club and you want to be in the daily structure of this is like singing to you, like that's a year-long thing. It's amazing. We'll link that up for you. If you want to start to understand more of the like really changing beliefs at the core level, my CEO Blueprint Masterclass series is my foundational program coming up in February. So there's something for everybody, and it's all on Instagram. So always on there, sharing lots of free value, lots of content. I do a lot of free masterclasses. So like depending on where people are at, there is something for everybody.
Wonderful. Yeah. And we'll link that up. Thank you so much, Adele. Like I do feel like the work that you and I did together has really like transformed my morning routine and the way that I'm like, that I insist basically on starting every day. And I feel like that's such a gift to give that to our audience. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me. I love our conversations. I'll be back anytime.
I hope you enjoyed that episode of Women's Health Unplugged. My goal is to help you feel more confident about your health. Please remember that what we talked about today in the podcast does not constitute medical advice, nor was a doctor-patient relationship formed. If you have questions about your healthcare or about how today's topic pertains to you, please take it up with your family doctor, your specialist, or someone on your health team.